The city buzzed far below, but inside the glass tower of Cole Enterprises, silence reigned. Ethan Cole, the billionaire CEO known for his sharp mind and sharper tongue, stood rigid in his corner office, the skyline of New York flickering behind him. His jaw clenched as he replayed the investor call in his head, a disaster that threatened to shake the company's next quarter. He poured a drink, but even that did little to calm the storm building inside him. Then, he heard it. A soft humming. He turned sharply. Just outside his office, a cleaner moved quietly, mop in hand, swaying slightly to the tune of a forgotten melody. The sight irritated him. How could anyone be humming at a time like this? Was this a joke? Fury surged through him. He strode out of his office and snapped, "What are you doing here at this hour?" The woman froze, startled. "I'm just finishing up, sir." Ethan didn't care. "This isn't a music hall. I don't pay people to dance around my building. You're done. I'll have HR sort this out tomorrow." He turned to grab his phone, dialing HR with a cold efficiency. But before the line could ring, a quiet voice stopped him in his tracks. "Please don't fire my mommy." He blinked. A small girl, maybe 7, had stepped out from behind the janitor's cart. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but her eyes, they held something that shook him to the core. Ethan stared at the little girl, momentarily lost for words. She stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, clutching a worn stuffed animal to her chest. Her hair was messy, her clothes too thin for the air-conditioned office, but her eyes were wide, clear, and pleading. "She didn't mean to make you mad," the girl said softly. "It's just, she was happy today." She smiled. "It's the first time in a long time." The CEO's phone slipped slowly from his ear. Something about the child's voice, its honesty, its sadness, cut deeper than he expected. He glanced at the cleaner, who stood frozen, shame washing over her face. She opened her mouth to speak, but the girl kept going. "She said this job makes her feel proud. Like she's part of something important," the child explained. "She always says even if nobody sees you, you should still do your best. Because the world always notices, someday." Ethan's throat tightened. This wasn't what he expected when he walked out of his office in anger. A simple HR call had turned into something more, a window into a world he'd forgotten even existed. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Maya," she replied. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was full of something else. Reflection. Guilt. And something Ethan hadn't felt in years, compassion. For the first time that night, he didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a man being reminded what truly mattered. Ethan knelt slightly to be at eye level with Maya, his voice softer than it had been in years. "Where's your dad, Maya?" She looked down at her stuffed toy, gently tracing its worn ear with her thumb. "He died last year. A car crash. Mama says he went to heaven." Ethan's gaze shifted to Rosa, the cleaner, her eyes now glistening with tears she hadn't let fall until that moment. She looked away, ashamed to have her life laid bare like this. Maya continued, her voice steady. "Now Mama works 2 jobs. One in the morning, one here at night. Sometimes we stay with Auntie, but some nights, we sleep in a shelter." She looked up again. "But Mama never complains. She just keeps working and tells me not to worry." The office, usually a place of numbers, deadlines, and pressure, suddenly felt like the quiet center of the universe. Ethan sat back in his chair, the weight of Maya's words settling on him like a stone. He had built an empire, made ruthless decisions, climbed every rung, but somewhere along the way, he had forgotten why people worked, what they sacrificed, and who they did it for. "She always says to me," Maya added, "even if people don't see you, still be kind. Because kindness is your own light." Ethan couldn't speak. His chest tightened with something unfamiliar. Not anger. Not stress. It was empathy. And for the first time in a long time, it refused to be ignored. The next morning, Rosa walked into the office building with heavy steps, holding Maya's hand tightly. She had barely slept. The words, "You're done," echoed in her mind all night. She expected a cold meeting with HR, a signature, and a silent walk back to uncertainty. But instead, when she entered the room, Ethan Cole was already there, waiting, not with anger in his eyes, but something else. Something softer. "Please, sir," Rosa began, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean any disrespect. I know I shouldn't bring Maya, but I had no choice. Ethan gently raised his hand to stop her. "No apology needed," he said quietly. "In fact, I owe you a thank you." Rosa froze. Ethan continued, his tone sincere. "Your daughter reminded me of something I'd forgotten a long time ago. Why we work. Why we lead." She spoke with more wisdom than most people I know. Rosa looked at him, unsure if this was a cruel trick or a strange dream. "I don't want to fire you," Ethan said. "I want to promote you. Full-time staff coordinator. Benefits. Paid time off. And we'll help with housing too." Rosa's knees almost gave out. Her hands flew to her face as the tears came, this time from relief, not shame. Maya squealed with joy and hugged her mother's waist. Rosa knelt, wrapping her daughter tightly in her arms. Ethan watched them both, overwhelmed by something new, peace. For once, giving felt better than winning. 1 year later, the grand ballroom of a New York hotel shimmered with golden lights. Laughter echoed, cameras flashed, and the city's elite gathered for Cole Enterprises' annual gala. But this year, something was different. On stage stood Ethan Cole, not in his usual cold, calculated confidence, but with warmth in his voice and emotion in his eyes. He looked out at the crowd, investors, executives, staff, and paused before speaking. "Last year, I was reminded of something powerful. Not by a board member or a business mentor, but by a little girl." The audience quieted. "She told me her mother was proud to clean our floors. That she worked with pride even when no one noticed. That kindness is your own light." He smiled gently. That child's words shook me more than any market loss ever could. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. Ethan continued, "Tonight, I'm proud to announce the launch of the Maya Project, a foundation that will support single parents in the workforce with housing, childcare, and career growth. Because no one's work should be invisible." The room erupted into applause. At a front table, Rosa sat in a beautiful dress, tears in her eyes, holding Maya's hand. The little girl beamed, her legs swinging off the chair, her smile lighting up the room. Ethan looked at her and nodded, a silent thank you. And in that moment, surrounded by power and wealth, the richest man in the room wasn't Ethan, it was Maya, whose small voice had sparked a legacy of hope.